Oh, there we go. You probably weren't hearing me. I forgot to set up my mic. Let me see if my mic is still good. Oh, wow, 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 wow. Yeah, it is. Hello, hello. Okay, yeah. Sorry, just yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, the first 54 seconds of this video just did not work out well. Anyway, so I was saying, welcome, Emily. Today is the 17th of February, 2019. And I have just finished having a conversation with my mom, Barbara Gibson, who lives in Santa Fe. And we used Apple's FaceTime video teleconferencing method, and it worked really well. In fact, we had a really great conversation. I was really struck by how much I enjoyed our conversation over having a conversation on the phone. So that was a really pleasant surprise. I'm glad that worked out. It turned out that I ended up speaking with her on her cell phone, which is great. That turned out really well. And today I've just basically been spending it indoors, hanging out, not doing, I've been cleaning up the house and, doing some reading. I want to read more. In fact, that's kind of like a personal goal of mine, to spend more time reading. And it's already the end of the day. I can't believe how fast the day has come along. There's, I don't know, time is short. Days, despite them being as long as they are still relatively short. I've got plenty of energy to do stuff. I was going to bake a pumpkin pie today and just did not get around to it. Who knows? Maybe I'll do it today, or, maybe I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll make a pumpkin pie. I am planning to work out tomorrow at the gym for a long time. So maybe I'll work out and then bake a pumpkin pie. Why not? That sounds like a good idea, right? Let's see. I'm curious about what's going on in your world and what's going on in your mind. If you're contemplating anything interesting. I've just been reading and trying to reach out to friends and family. I think I'm going to be visiting Magic Mountain soon again. I'm connecting with other people who have annual passes to Magic Mountain, and so we're going to try to go together and make that work. So anyway, I was thinking that one thing that I've kind of neglected to do recently is do the question and answer period. I've been really focused on making sure that I touch on the book notes. The Happiness Makeover book by MJ Ryan that I read previously. And I've been spending less time on just raw question and answers. And I think what I want to do is maybe spend some time today doing some question and answer period. So Q&A, let's do a little Q&A. Now, I think some of these I might have already touched on. One was question number 261. What's your pleasure? Horseshoes, shuffleboard, croquet, archery, or darts? Okay, these games are not, I'm not that popular. I don't play them all the time. So if I had a choice between horseshoes, shuffleboard, croquet, archery, and darts, I think I would play croquet. Croquet is kind of a fun game. It's sort of like pool, but you play it on someone's lawn or on the grass in the park. I like croquet. Croquet is a really nice game. And then the next one I think might be horseshoes. It's kind of fun to toss metal horseshoes around and try to hit your target. Horseshoes is actually a pretty tough game. Those horseshoe metal rods are kind of far away. They're like 20, 30 feet away. That's a long distance to toss a horseshoe. So you've got to be really skilled anyway to get any of those horseshoes around the ring or around that post. Then I guess the next one would be darts. I think I've played darts a few times. I really don't know the rules that well. And so I think I'd probably be winging it most of the time. But then it would be darts, then maybe archery, and then shuffleboard. I'm not sure I've ever played shuffleboard. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, if I did play shuffleboards, it might have been that I just was standing on a shuffleboard game and, or sort of a diagram on the ground. I'm not sure that I've even ever really played that game. I'm not sure I even know how. Is there a point target that you're asked to hit? I don't know. I don't know what it's all about. Let's see. What else? What's the next question? So question number 262. What are your favorite summer and winter sports? Now that question sounds familiar. I think I might have already answered that in a previous video. I'll just move on. Question number 263. What is your most treasured piece of jewelry and why? Well, my most treasured piece of jewelry is just my watch, and my watch is not a high dollar watch at all. It's actually a very, very low cost watch. It's just like $50. It's a Timex, and I like it because I like the design of it. I like I like the dial face. It's got a chronometer, which is basically a fancy word for stopwatch, and it glows green. It's got one of those. Oh man, it's not even doing it now. Well, I thought it glowed. It's kind of broke. It's actually kind of broke. I've got, there was an O-ring that made it waterproof, and the O-ring fell out. And so now it's not even waterproof. It may not even be water resistant anymore. So it's really on its last legs. I got to get that O-ring replaced. One thing I also like is the strap. It's got this really nice nylon NATO strap on it. I think it looks cool. So that's my most essential or favorite piece of jewelry. It's not high dollar at all. Like I mentioned, it only costs $50. And here's the thing. I also don't use it all the time. You'd think, oh, it's on my wrist, that I'd use it a lot. Well, I've also got a cell phone, and I spend a lot of time checking my cell phone. And so I'll check the time too using my cell phone. And so basically that duty of helping me discover what time it is shared between the clock on my wrist and my smartphone. So, I might use it just 50% of the time that any normal person would use a watch. There was a long time in my life when I didn't wear a watch, and I got along perfectly fine. And that time in my life was a lengthy time. It was like 2 or 3 years. Maybe it was even as long as 5 years that I didn't wear a watch. It's been a long time since there was a long span of time where I didn't wear a watch at all. When I was growing up, I was a big fan of the calculator watches. One of my favorite watches was a watch that had a calculator face on it, from 0 to 9 and then plus minus multiplication and division. That was a big deal. I think I probably got that first watch when I was I don't know, might have been in my teens or something like that. And I just love it. And I still continue to love that watch. One thing that's interesting about watch technology is that it hasn't changed very much over the years. Whereas smartphone technology changes like every 2, 3, 4, 5 years, regular analog or watches, wrist watches just don't change that much. That is, unless you're talking about like the smartwatches, which change every year. I know Apple's got a smartwatch. In fact, Em, I considered getting you a gift of a new Apple smartwatch or a smartwatch if you didn't already have one. I'm still contemplating that idea. I wanted to get some feedback from you about whether you've got one already. I know that people with smartphones, Apple smartphones, quite often get smartwatches, and I didn't want to send you a duplicate gift if someone's already gotten you a smartwatch. So I would like to have some of that information about whether you've got one or not. And other kinds of watches that people have are like these Fitbits, right? They're pedometers. I used to wear those all the time, but now I just use my smartphone as a pedometer. It works sometimes. In fact, recently I've been struggling lately with smartphone pedometers, just because the reason is because these smartphones, when I'm walking a lot, like when I'm at an amusement park or walking through a city on a day trip, I tend to turn on my battery saver on my smartphone. And when I do that, it cuts off the number of apps that are running in the background, and that shuts down my pedometers. So it's kind of funny. So the very time when I could be using a smartphone pedometer, which is when I'm, say, doing long walks, I also try to preserve battery power, which essentially turns off all my pedometer apps. So I'm kind of stuck. Now, I have had really good experience keeping a pedometer in my pocket. And you know what? The answer may be that I just use one of those during days when I want to sort of break records with my walk, walk 9, 10, 11 miles in a day. I think I actually own a pedometer right now. It's possible. I'll have to check. The thing about pedometers is sometimes they break or the batteries get old or something. I honestly also might not have a pedometer right now. We'll see. So I've been glancing at my image here in the video camera, and I'm noticing that my hair is really big today. That's cool. And it's looking curly too. I was talking in the last video about curly hair and how I wanted to sort of find myself again in this natural hairstyle and find more curly hair. I think curly hair, particularly long hair, can be appealing. It's not appealing in every man, that's for sure. I haven't quite figured out whether it's appealing in my own appearance. We'll see how it goes. I'll find out over time, I guess. So let's see. What's the next question on the question and answer period we've got? Question number 264. What's your reaction toward people who are outspoken about their beliefs? What conditions cause you to dislike or conversely enjoy talking with them? Okay, so in general, my reaction to people who are outspoken, well, I like people who are outspoken about their beliefs. In a way, it gives me information about who they are and what they care about. So I value when people talk to me about what's important to them. Now, there is a point, though, where it either becomes like too much information, TMI, or people dwell for lengthy periods of time on single subjects, and the conversation dries out. And I have a sense that sometimes these people catch on. They know how it's somewhat unpleasant to belabor an idea, but hey, I understand it. I've been in the grip of being sort of like maybe obsessed with an idea before and wanting to express myself about it. Sometimes you just don't care. Don't care about how your audience feels. I know. I've been both a victim in the audience and a perpetrator that is talking to people a little bit longer than they want to talk about a subject that's important to me. There's some people who just love talking about horses, or they like talking about their dogs, or they like talking about their cars, or maybe the Knicks, right? There's some baseball or football or sports team. And I can get along with that kind of conversation for a while. But after 5-10 minutes, 15 minutes max, I think I'm done. I've sort of given them as much of freedom about that subject as I can, and I'm sometimes asked to change the subject. But I am thankful to hear what other people are passionate about. In fact, it reminds me. I mean, for example, it's a good example. They are a good example about maybe for me about expressing what's important to me to others. I know that it's really easy to be inhibited and not discuss what you're passionate about, what your focus is on. It's tempting to sort of think about other stuff, sort of hide it in conversation, but I think it's important. It's about being vulnerable in your relationships with others, letting them know what's on your mind. I think that can be a virtuous behavior. I think it can be really valuable, and plus, I just like seeing other people happy. I like seeing other people when they're expressing themselves deeply and passionately. It's kind of exciting. Some of that energy rubs off on me, and so I'm thankful to hear about it. I also tend to learn a lot. Sometimes those people who are passionate about things are passionate for reasons, right? Really, reasons that relate to their health, right? To life and death, or maybe to say freedom or virtue. And so I want to hear this. I want to hear what other people are passionate about. So next part of the question is, what conditions cause you to dislike or conversely enjoy talking with them? Well, there is a point where I sometimes might feel left out of the conversation. A person who dominates a conversation is a person who's not willing to hear inputs or ideas related to even related to their ideas. I like to make a contribution. I like to feel like I'm part of the conversation sometimes. And when people are sort of they over control a conversation and don't let me speak or express my related ideas about that subject, I'm less inclined to continue the conversation. It's just reality. So let's see, what's the next question? So the next question is question number 265. What is something that bothers you if it is not done perfectly? And why is that so? That's kind of interesting. Well, for me, not a lot bothers me. I tend to be really pretty relaxed when it comes to other people's behavior. Part of that is just, I think with age comes maturity and a level of patience. And so I'm just not bothered by things as much. Well, there are some things that bother me a little bit. Uh, One thing that bothers me is insensitivity in conversation. I would like people to be sensitive in conversation. When people talk about race or politics or who knows what else, some other controversial issue, I want people to respect other views, disparate views. And when other people's views are not, when I sense that other people's views are not being protected or respected, it bothers me a little bit. And maybe I'll try to make a correction, or I might just sort of steer clear of the conversation altogether. So, but yeah, I think it's important for me I like to see like equality and respect in the conversations I have with other people. But I think this is more than just conversation. This is talking about just behavior. What kind of behavior is something that bothers me if it's not done perfectly? Kind of behavior bothers me if it's not done perfectly. Here's the thing about behavior not done perfectly. And this is something that I rely on a lot. When acts are not performed perfectly, there are consequences. And what happens quite often is that natural consequences are the result of imperfect behavior. And if it matters whether or not behavior is perfect, then those natural consequences will come to be, right? They will come to the fore. They will come to fruition. And so I use that as my guide mostly. I ask myself about the consequences of that behavior, and and what that does is it's self-regulating, right? If the behavior is not perfect and the consequences mean that behavior is it doesn't yield the consequences expected, then there's a feedback loop that's created, and things basically take care of themselves. Yeah. So I guess my answer to that question is not much bothers me when it's not done perfect. There are some things that bother me when behavior is unsafe. That actually bothers me. Like when I'm driving as a passenger in another vehicle and the driver is not paying attention or is driving too fast, that kind of bothers me. Yeah, it's that kind of behavior. The thing is, I try not to focus too much on that because it's actually not easy to change other person's behaviors. Sometimes I feel rather powerless in changing other person's behaviors. Sometimes I can only make a comment about that behavior, and it's really up in the air whether that goes far or not. All right, so let's see, what is the next question in this Q&A session? Question number 266. What is your favorite musician and how often have you seen him or her perform? Okay, so I really don't have a favorite musician. Can't say I do. You know who I do like kind of? I like Billy Joel. That's a name that comes to mind. I really like his work. I've been noticing his songs lately, and I like that. Sam Cooke is another musician I like. Sam Cooke is an oldie but goodie type singer, and he's passed away many years ago. So there's really no chance of me seeing Sam Cooke in concert. I think Billy Joel may have even stopped performing concerts too, of any appreciable size. So let's see. what new artist has been on my mind lately? Well, um, I like a lot of the standard pop artists, like the Lady Gagas of the world, and the Katy Perrys of the world, the Taylor Swifts of the world. So I'd be more than happy to go to any of their concerts. Um, but there's something I know about concerts is that quite often the sound fidelity of that song is compromised by the large venue or by audiences and their participation. If I want a really clean musical experience, having one, listening to an artist's recordings is a great way to do that. I've been to a few concerts before, music concerts, and I find that I'm distracted. I'm distracted by irregularities in the music. Maybe the song is a little bit different. Maybe it's a different tempo. Maybe I also find that they're distracting. Like the audience can be very distracting. Sometimes during my favorite songs, the audience is singing along with the artist, or they're clapping rhythmically to the beat. And, I lose focus and I'm not able to enjoy the music as much as I'd like. So that's a consideration. In fact, some of them, I used to, there was an artist who I really, really enjoyed. Um, I really enjoyed her recordings. And then I went to go see her live, and I could not stand sitting in the audience, even just listening to the music. It was just powerfully dissatisfying. In fact, this was an artist who, I think I had many of her albums, like 2 or 3 of her albums, and I was really looking forward to going to see her. I took a date. I think it was like at the Kiva Auditorium where we listened to her music, and I was just really struck by, on a scale from 1 to 10, I really did not like the concert. I was like, for me, it was like a 3, where 10 is like the best concert ever. I really had a bad time at it. And, I think that's always stuck with me. It's an amazing contrast. I really was a fan, a powerful and excited fan about this music artist. And I had many albums by hers, and I knew a lot of the songs, a lot of the lyrics by heart. And then just so sorely disappointed by the music being played live. It was so different than what I expected. And also the speakers were really loud. Yeah. It's not the same. It's just not the same seeing an artist in concert. And so I actually am not, I don't necessarily today prefer to see an artist in concert live. I'd rather just listen to their recordings. And another part of their music that I might also like are sort of remixes of their recordings. I really like that a lot too. It gives me a different perspective on the song if I really love it. So I'll do that. Now it's kind of funny. There are artists who I've seen in person that I really like, and then I've listened to their recordings and I didn't like their recordings at all. Yeah, that's happened a few times when I've been to a music venue, maybe a music festival, and I've just loved the music live. And then when I heard the recording, it was just, nah, forget about this. It's pretty funny, There's, for me, the enjoyment is not like a one-to-one match. For me, whether a live performance is as good as a recording, or a recording is as good as a live performance, there's really no telling. For me, there's no telling. So I think for that reason, I don't necessarily think that, I don't feel necessarily inspired to go see artists playing live. That's great because it saves me lots of money. Going to artists' concerts costs lots of money. In fact, the last concert I went was Troye Sivan, and I did enjoy his concert quite a bit, and I enjoyed also the other artists that were touring with him, and I enjoyed the music that he played on stage, and it was really good. But it was a little kind of expensive for me. I mean, it wasn't that expensive, but I mean, not in the whole scheme of things. I mean, I'm really glad that I went. The thing is, I had to travel far to get to the concert. It was down in Los Angeles, which is what, 2.5, 3.5 hour drive. And then I drove back. It just took a lot of time. That's like 7 hours of driving, and and plus the concert tickets, and I don't know, the parking costs money. Serious. And it was good. It was enjoyable. It was fun. I don't think I'd do it every day though. I might go to 1 or 2 live music concerts a year, and that's plenty. That's more than enough. In fact, Emily, one thing that has been intriguing me lately is going to the Santa Barbara Bowl. I have an interest in going to the Santa Barbara Bowl and checking out a concert there. This year would be good, here in 2019. Let me tell you, 2019 for me, I've got so many plans going on in 2019. I don't know. There's a lot of travel, a lot of special events going on for me. I just got, like I mentioned earlier, I just finished speaking with my mom, and there are a number of activities going on in New Mexico this year, 2019, that I'm looking forward to, and I'd like to travel to New Mexico to see them. And number one is, I typically go to New Mexico around Memorial Day to visit my family. But my sister, Barbriana, and your aunt is interested in getting married. And so if she does get married this year, I'll want to travel to go to the wedding sometime in 2019. And, there's another reason I might go to New Mexico. I've got a 30-year high school reunion happening this year. And, I graduated in 1989, and it's 2019, and that's 30 years. And so I've got my 30-year high school reunion coming up. I'm definitely wanting to go to that. So that's the third reason that I could be going to New Mexico this year. And then I just mentioned, and there's a fourth reason too. My brother, Angelo Trujillo, is likely going to graduate this year with a college degree. And I wanted to be present when he receives his diploma, his college degree. And that's real exciting. I definitely want to go and give him support for having gotten that degree. He worked really hard to get it, and I'm so proud of him. And yeah, so that's like the fourth reason that this year I would go to New Mexico. I got so much stuff going on this year when it comes to travel. I don't know how I'm going to fit it all into the year. I'm going to have to, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do really. So we'll see how it all goes. It's really going to be a record-breaking year for me. Yeah. So let's see what else is going on. What other questions can we consider here in this question and answer period? Who is your favorite comedian? Oh boy, I do have a favorite comedian, but his name is Reagan. Michael Reagan. I forget. Regan. Brian Regan. He's my favorite comedian. In fact, you and your mom, your mom and I went to go see Brian Regan at the Arlington Theater. He was a comedian there. He was a comedian who played there, and I totally loved his act. I was laughing so hard. Brian Regan, what a funny guy. Now, I haven't seen him in concert since. I mean, this was like 8 or 9 years ago that Sheila and I saw Brian Regan in concert. He still remains my favorite comedian. He's still very funny. I have other favorite comedians. The rest basically fall into this background. There's so many comedians, by the way. There's hundreds and hundreds of comedians. Now, some comedians that are notable, at least in my mind, are Jerry Seinfeld. I know that's kind of odd. That's definitely like a different, it's like a different era for you, Em. And I recognize you probably won't relate. But he had a sitcom a long time ago on television, and I really enjoyed it. I still enjoy those episodes. And it's kind of funny. I never did go see Jerry Seinfeld in concert, as he was performing his act. And that's okay, because here's the thing too. I don't necessarily, I don't, it's kind of funny. For him, he's like a notable comedian. It's not that I've gotten my heartiest laughs ever from Jerry. Jerry is more sort of an insightful type comedian, and he's just sort of, he's got a style that you appreciate over time as you've been exposed to it. But I don't think of him as particularly funny, like a laugh out loud funny. Comedians that I also think are notable and enjoyable are Aziz Ansari. I think he's pretty interesting and funny. Although I'm hearing a lot less about him recently. I don't know. I like a lot of the Saturday Night Live comedians. They're funny. For me also, one favorite personality on Saturday Night Live is Sherry O'Terry. Oh my gosh. She also is not part of Saturday Night Live anymore, but I get a kick out of her sometimes. I don't know. It's hard for me when it comes to comedians. It's hard because there are a lot of funny people out there, particularly in Hollywood, that are in a lot of movies. I don't know. All right. So, before I go too far with that, I did wanted to touch on the Happiness Makeover book and talk about some of the highlights of the book. One passage that I highlighted of that book was on page 8. And I highlighted this passage. It reads, "Then he began taking action where he could. Better training for his employees so he wouldn't have to do so much himself, setting boundaries with the kids, making it clear that there were consequences for not doing assigned chores, for instance, and letting go of the rest." Okay, so this highlight, I think, focuses on this idea of taking action where you can. And I guess that's why I highlighted this passage in this book. Sometimes life can be troubling, bothersome, annoying. And I know sometimes one can feel powerless. We just can't control other people's behaviors. Sometimes we can't control external reality. We can't control the situation. We just don't have the power to control. Now, quite often we have the power to influence, but most of our control as human beings resides in our mind, right? It's how we think about the world through our narrative. The control that we do have externally comes in limited forms. We could write emails, we can write letters, we can make telephone calls, we can make appeals to reason, or we can sort of explain things and describe things. We could do some research. When it comes to influencing our external reality, particularly when something is somewhat bothersome, the fact is we can just do what we can do. There are only a few things that we can do as humans to change or to attempt to change our external reality. And, I think it's important to recognize that. When it comes to, say, my power over my external environment, there are just a few acts that I can perform to get what I want. So much of what is involved in things like cooperation and working together and working with a mutual goal involves things like consent. It involves things like negotiation. You somehow got to get other people on your side, right? Get other people to see the problem as you do so you can take action jointly. And, there's not often a lot you can do to do it. But I think it's important to be focused on what you can do. It's easy. It's real easy, in fact, to get so bothered by some external event or situation that you don't do anything. You just stop acting. In fact, I think that's what happens for a lot of people. I think of quite often people who feel lonely, right? They feel socially isolated. They might not take action. There are like dating apps, or there's meetup.com groups. There's, quite often people have like the telephone numbers of all their friends, but they never call. Or maybe their friends call them to invite them to stuff, but they don't answer the phone. Despite people feeling lonely or separated from the world, sometimes people don't take action. And, and that's true. That holds true for other problems too. For example, politics is a really good example, just in general. People may have certain, even strong opinions, but not go out and vote, or they may not describe the position on certain media websites or social media websites. It's kind of funny, really, how people decide what to do next. Sometimes even people who are highly motivated for a certain outcome in their external reality, sometimes they'll decide not to do anything, out of frustration, out of feelings of powerlessness and helplessness, And so I think it's really important to really come to grips with this idea that it's important to take action, even small action, tiny action in a direction that can be helpful. I think it's kind of interesting. The trend, I think, for a lot of people is to sometimes take action, but if that action is sort of not coordinated or timed right, that action can actually work against your interests, work against the things that you value, can destroy the relationships you've got, can destroy the goodwill you have with others. So, it's kind of interesting. If you decide to take action, you got to make sure that those actions are strategic, that they are intentional, and that that they'll work to serve the purpose of that action, right? Reality is sort of our history, in fact, is just filled to the brim with people who take action, but those actions are self-sabotaging. They quite often undermine the intent. undermine people's plans to change external reality. It's really easy to sort of get caught up in a bad plan, and not solve your problems at all. So let's see. What's the next passage? Well, the next passage is this one on page 9. Another client came to me, same issue. I gave her the same assignment, and she came back saying, happy people have more fun. They take time to play. So I helped her figure out how she would do more. So MJ Ryan here is talking about this exercise that she gives people who are unhappy. And the exercise is that she assigns them the project of studying other people who are happy and finding out what makes them happy. And the result, quite often, is that these people come up with answers, and they don't always come up with the same answers. They come up with different answers that are quite often tailored to them and their own psychology. I really like that example. I think it's true that people pay attention to ideas that they're struggling with themselves. They'll project their problems onto reality, and they may be fully aware that they may be aware that they have a problem, but that awareness may not sort of bubble to the top, so to speak. They may have sort of I guess this problem of projection, I think, is really apparent. We're all sort of in our own mind and sort of blinded by our perceptions or our perspective. And, it's kind of funny that when we spot problems in others, sometimes we're also spotting that problem in ourselves. It's where our focus is quite often, that we bring our attention to. We bring our attention to a focus that is basically a mirror of our internal world. Yeah, that happens quite a bit. Anyway, I like that comment from MJ Ryan about how she finds that when people when she gives people assignments to discover what makes other people happy, quite often the answers that they come up with are things that people need to work on themselves. Yeah. I like that idea. I think it's kind of a clever approach. Yeah. It's a good reminder that people are, I think people pretty much know what's going on, Anyway. So let's move on. Okay, so part of that quotation was this phrase, or these two sentences, really. It says, happy people have more fun. They take time to play. I think that's really important. I think it's important to take time to play. It's important to smell the roses, so to speak, to get out and perform some behaviors that are associated with happiness and joy, like dancing. Dancing is a great example of that. In fact, I need to do more of that. Oh, yeah, I really do. It's really important to act in ways that are happiness producing. You want your actions to be consistent with and support the kind of emotions that you want to emphasize in your life. Yeah. And it's probably possible to be happy and not act in a happy way. It's probably possible, but it's not probable. It's far more easy to be happy while acting in a happy way. Absolutely. And, it's important to take time to do that, to focus your attention on that. And and just do fun stuff. Do fun stuff, play. In fact, one of the things that I think is really critical between us is I'd like to find more times to play with you, to have a good time together. And that's quite often why I invite you to stuff. I think that we can have a good time together. I think it's possible. It really is possible. And, I think the option is there. And, we just need to take a chance and let it happen. Because here's the thing, I love having fun. I love exploring new things, learning, doing new things, going on road trips and going on day trips to different cities, going to amusement parks. I love having a lot of fun. I love doing sporting events and going dancing and all kinds of fun, all kinds of things that are fun. And I want to enjoy those times with you. And I think sometimes I think Am's really serious. But I know you have fun too in your way, whatever that fun is, whether it's listening to music or drawing on paper, coloring or anything like that. I think it would go a long way if we had some fun together. And anyway, I guess maybe that would be a really good focus for my next letter to you. Thinking about ways that we could have fun together. One thing that it makes sense for us is that we can play games at a distance, computer games. I've got an iPad Pro, and what that means is that I can play iPad apps, and there are iPad apps that you could do turn-based games, turn by turn, where we play games using instant messaging through Messenger or Messages. Is that what it's called? That could be fun. I know that there are word games that we can play. There are games that are related to Scrabble or Boggle that look pretty fun. And there are other games like, I think there's soccer or pool, like pool table type pool. That would be fun. I'd be interested in exploring those kind of games. I would also be interested in, say, even like writing poetry and things like that. Making up stories that are fun and interesting. That sounds good. And also we could also play games by taking photographs or taking videos and then sharing those videos. When we take videos, say we are using the Clips app, we can string those videos together and and exchange those video artworks with one another. I mean, that sounds like fun too. And anyway, there's really so much to do, enabled by technology, ways to have fun. And I don't want us to ignore that. I think that's really critical. Something that we can do together and have fun and enjoy doing. In fact, I even play video games. I'd be totally up for playing video games, like getting a Nintendo Game Boy or getting like an Xbox 360 or a PlayStation 4 or something like that. I don't know what kind of video games you play, if you play video games at all, but that could be kind of fun to do too. Well, anyway, I want to start wrapping things up here, Em. It's getting late too. I hope you enjoyed my big hair. My big weekend hair. Look at those strings. I almost look like Superman. I want to bring this hair down. There we go. Oh, yeah. We'll see. I'm still experimenting with my hair and the way I want it. I'm really not sure how to make the adjustments to make it look good, but we'll find a way. So I wanted to say thank you for bearing with me. in this discussion, and I hope you learned something about me. I hope you learned something maybe about yourself. I hope you learned something about what it is to be happy and to live an enjoyable life that's filled with satisfaction and meaning and cooperation. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I hope you have a fantastic week at school. I'm looking forward to a week of school at Allen Hancock College and a week at work. Should be fun. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you later. I love you, girl. Peace.